We have Leslie Frieden from NIDCR. She is part of the Research, Training, and Career Development branch. And we have Manana Sukareva from NIBIB, who is with the Office of Scientific Review, here to give a grant and technical writing session designed mostly for trainees.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first session that is on grantsmanship workshop. I really appreciate my colleague from NIDCR, Leslie Frieden. She joined me to present her perspectives from program officer, and I am here as a review part, and I'm the director of the scientific review office at NIBIB. So I will let Leslie start, and anytime if anyone has questions, well, I guess the moderators give instructions how to manage the questions. Okay, Leslie, it's your.
Great, thank you, Manana. So I'm Leslie Frieden of the National Institute of Dental and Craniofacial Research, and I am a program officer primarily focusing on awards that support mentored research training and career development, such as fellowships and Pathway to Independence awards. So to just briefly orient everyone, so the National Institutes of Health is both a place that conducts research through its intramural research laboratories and the NIH Clinical Center. Many of them are found in Bethesda, Maryland, but they are also found at other spots across in the country. And it's also a grant-giving institution, which Manana and I both represent. So, and this is known as the extramural research program. So it provides funding to both institutions and also funding to support mentored research training for individuals.
So as Leslie said, there are 27 institutes and centers at NIH, and all of them but 3 centers have funding authority. They have their own budget that they distribute to the extramural community, to researchers, to trainees, and to anyone who has smart ideas and submits their proposals to NIH. There are 3 centers that do not have their own funding to distribute it. Those are in NIH Clinical Center, Center for Information Technology, and Center for Scientific Review. And Center for Scientific Review is the major kind of machine that reviews all grant application. 80% of grant application come and reviewed by Center for Scientific Review. The other 20% is distributed to the institutes that have their own review shops, and these institute shops, they reviewed special programs, training programs, and other initiatives.
So the funding opportunity announcement is a publicly available announcement from a federal agency. And this is where you can find all of the grants that Manana has discussed and that I'll discuss as well. And so it is an intention to award grants as a result of a competition for funds. You can find them on the NIH website. You could subscribe to a weekly email from the NIH Guide to Grants and Contracts that will alert you once a week on all the new funding opportunity announcements that have been issued or reissued. And also institute-specific websites will have funding opportunity announcements available. In fact, at NIDCR, you can subscribe for updates as well on what's new at our institute. And I'm sure many agencies do the same, institutes and centers do the same thing. The funding opportunity announcement has comprehensive information on all aspects of the award, and the budget for the award, the criteria that peer review will use to evaluate your application, and also the agency contacts that you can ask about your application. Next slide, please. And so considerations for choosing a funding opportunity announcement. One will be your career stage. So are you a student and where are you in the program? Is it time to apply? Are you about to graduate? So maybe applying isn't you should think about the next step. Are you a postdoctoral researcher or junior faculty? And how much mentored research training do you really need to be independent? And other considerations such as diversity or re-entering the research workforce. Many of the mentored research training awards, although not the research project grants, do have citizenship requirements. So you need to think about whether you're a US citizen or a permanent resident or a non-citizen on a temporary visa in the US. Some of the mentored research training and career development awards have particular eligibility limitations based on your academic and professional degrees. There are some mechanisms dedicated to clinician scientists, and others are, there's another program that is for individuals outside in areas of science outside of the NIH. And also other qualifying circumstances. For example, if you're a member of an underrepresented group, you might consider applying to a diversity targeted funding opportunity announcement. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of the NIH grant mechanisms that support mentored research training and career development organized by career stage. And so the bulk, although not all of our research training support, focuses on the student, the postdoctoral, and early career faculty or junior faculty stage. At the student level, and these are individual awards that you apply to as a principal investigator. There are other mechanisms that support mentored research training and career development, but your institution applies for them and they administer the award. And so you may be appointed to them, but you don't have to apply to the NIH for them. So in terms of these individual awards, at the student level, there are fellowships that support pre-doctoral training for PhD training or for clinician PhD integrated dual degree training. Also relatively new is a mechanism called a pre-doctoral to postdoctoral transition award. There are a few of them used across NIH. They all have specific eligibility or science areas that they support. And it supports basically the last 2 years of your pre-doctoral student training and the early years of your postdoctoral research. So it's sort of like a bridge award. Postdoctoral research, early stage postdoctoral research can be supported by a postdoctoral fellowship, and depending upon your career stage and where you are, you may be eligible as a postdoc for a career development award or pathway to independence award. And then the transition between postdoctoral research fellow and independent faculty is also covered by a postdoctoral to faculty career transition award, most commonly the NIH K99 R00 Pathway to Independence Award, but there are a few K22 transition awards that support both the mentored postdoctoral research and independent support. And then at a junior faculty level, you would be supported by a career development award that also comes in a variety of types based upon your doctoral degree and other considerations. Next slide, please. And so to start with the fellowships, so they are all under the umbrella of the Ruth L. Kirstein National Research Service Awards. And these are T's that your university might have applied for and manage, and fellowships, the F's. These awards are limited to US citizens or permanent residents of the United States at the time of award. You can apply while residency is pending, but you would need to provide verification that you were a permanent resident of the United States to accept the award. And they require full-time professional effort on your research training and career development. The award provides a stipend at a rate that is set annually, partial assistance with tuition and fees, and then it's called different things. It's the same amount of money, either an institutional allowance or travel and training related expenses that support small costs of training. These are not research grants. So in the competitive review of your application, it's expected that you're surrounded by a team that can support your research because a fellowship won't support the research. And then relatively new, NIH has started to support some childcare expenses as applicable through F's and T's. Next slide, please. And then the Pathway to Independence Award, K99 R00, there are several types of K99 programs. Some main ones that many institutes and centers participate in are, of course, the NIH Parent Pathway to Independence Awards. This is for individuals with any doctoral degree and require 1 to 2 years of postdoctoral research before you get an independent tenure track research faculty position. At the submission or resubmission deadline, you would need to have less than 4 years of postdoctoral research, although there are some considerations in place right now that I'll talk about in the next slide. And the NIH Pathway to Independence Award is open to both US citizens and non-citizens in the United States on temporary visas. There's also a program that many institutes and centers participate in, including NIDCR and I believe NIBIB, called the Mosaic K99 that's offered by the National Institute of General Medical Sciences. So this is also open to individuals of any doctoral degree who are interested in diversity and have less than and also need to be US citizens or permanent residents of the United States. And this program involves participation with a mentoring network that you don't need to come up with the network. You're assigned to one, but you need to plan in your application for how you will participate in this mentoring program. All K99 awards require 75% protected research effort, although during the R00 phase, your university needs to guarantee 75% of your effort to research, but you don't need to dedicate it entirely to the R00. During the K99, you're dedicating 75% of your effort to the K99. The citizenship requirements vary. NIDCR offers a K99 salary of up to $100,000. There are some variations among the different institutes that participate in this program. And research resources at $25,000. And then during the R00 phase, the award is $249,000 that you can itemize as suits your needs, but you don't need to itemize the budget in your original application. Next slide, please. So K99 Math, how are we calculating it? So the deal is that you need no more than 4 years of postdoctoral research at submission or resubmission, but this may not necessarily be consecutive years. So if you spent time away from research and clinical training, or there were some family care considerations or personal circumstances, that's not counted for eligibility. So you need to think of that in terms of 48 months of postdoctoral research at the deadline. Now, currently, individuals who had a child within the 4 years of postdoctoral research can have a 1-year extension of eligibility. And to request this, you email the program officer at least 12 weeks before submission and provide the child's date of birth, and that's all you need to do. This is a little bit different than the early stage investigator extension request, which is requested through the ERA Commons account. And if you're requesting K99 extension, you should also think about requesting early stage investigator eligibility at the same time. Now, currently, there are temporary extensions of K99 eligibility due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is described in this guide notice. But the best thing is to contact your program officer to determine eligibility in advance. And what we want to see is a biosketch. It doesn't necessarily need to be polished, but it needs to be very clear the official date of graduation, the month and date and year of the start of the postdoc and end of the postdoc, the months of any breaks. Be very specific about the timeline so we can best advise you. Next slide, please. And so career development awards, it's to prepare you for independent research funding in an independent research career. It can cover a range of career stages from postdoctoral to junior faculty, depending upon the career development award and the institute that's managing it. You need to be a citizen or a permanent resident at the time of award, and it's 75% effort. This award can be tailored to clinicians because you can use 25% of your outside effort for clinical or teaching or administrative that's not covered by the award. It's covered by your university or other sources. For NIDCR, we provide up to $100,000 a year salary in addition to fringe for a 3 to 5 year project period, and $25,000 a year research development support. Next slide, please. And I also want to mention that in addition to these programs, you may be able to apply at the same time for an NIH loan repayment award to offset qualified educational debt. And there's one annual deadline a year, and I think it's coming up. It might be November 15th. And look at this website for more information. Next slide, please. And also, if you're looking for mentored research training and career development opportunities that work for you, a great site is the NIH-wide research training and career development site, because it's organized all of these grant activities by career stage. Next slide, please. And so the life cycle of an NIH grant application, the point of this slide is to give you an overview of what steps take place as you prepare to apply and the application goes through peer review. And the point of this slide is that it's not just enough to write your application. There are steps you need to take as you prepare to apply, particularly if you are applying for a mentored award that requires contributions from individuals other than yourself. And also, no one submits an application by themselves. The sponsoring organization submits it electronically on their behalf. Usually this is housed in your business office. So they have their own requirements and internal deadlines. And then following application submission, it goes to peer review, hopefully receives a good score, and a summary statement is published. And then hopefully this will lead to a funding decision and an award, or you may need to restart the process for a resubmission or another type of grant submission. Next slide, please. Fortunately, NIDCR has grant application contacts along the way. So a program officer that I represent really does talk to you pretty much throughout the process as you're starting to think about what award might fit you, as you're have questions about the applications. And but then once you submit the application, all questions about peer review would be directed to your scientific review officer such as Manana's branch. And when as soon as a summary statement is published, you can go back to talking to your program officer about application review and potential next steps. Should you receive an award, your grants management officer is critical because they handle the financial aspects of your award and they enforce any policy issues related to their awards. So they're going to be very important people in your life. And you also continue to talk to your program officer. Next slide, please. So it's always helpful to contact your program officer in advance. That's what they're there for. And it's always easier to ask questions and find out the hard way. A few tips for contacting program officers. It's really helpful to email first to schedule the phone call. You know, depending on the schedule, sometimes people have availability to answer cold calls, but it's better to have to set aside a time when they can focus best on you and your application. Include a biosketch or a CV, particularly for these training awards if you're looking for eligibility. And you can provide an abstract or a specific aims page, please not the entire grant. And we will give you high-level input as to how the grant fits the institute's priorities and the grant activity. We won't review it in detail, but it's always helpful just to give us a flavor of your grant, but it's really limited to one page. And then, you know, you can have individual or joint calls with program officer, or sometimes, you know, one or two program officers work, and your mentors. And you can find your program contacts in the funding opportunity announcement. So here's an example of where I am in the NIH Pathway to Independence Award. Next slide, please. So just a few tips for assembling a mentored research training application. So before the application, you should assemble a team. So your primary mentor and co-mentor provide oversight and support of your training. So you're more in contact with them on a weekly or basis. Collaborators and consultants, you fill in as needed. They don't need to be involved all the time, but they might have, you know, key resources or research competencies or career advice. And then sponsoring institution, particularly for the postdoc awards, they provide a mentored or faculty position, protected research time, space, and resources. If you're in a graduate program, they're describing the graduate program. So So it's not just you in the application, it's the people you've surrounded yourself with. Next slide, please. And of course, for fellowships, you need to develop, and career development awards, you need to develop a significant research project. So you need to identify a gap in the field, of course, through the literature. And the NIH Reporter database is really helpful because it has any NIH award is public information. So you can see the abstract and the grantee and the grant organization. And there's a text search called Matchmaker where you can basically stick an entire abstract and see what areas match. So you can see if there's a lot of research in the field or a little bit. And then of course, discussing it with your mentors and colleagues. For a mentored research training project, it's not just about the research, it's about how conducting this research will prepare you for your research training and career goals. Is it teaching you new techniques or disciplines? And is it going to help you get to the next career stage? And also it's important to determine if the project can be achieved during the training. Are you at the right place? Do they have the right resources? Can your mentors train you? And are the aims that you proposed going to fit within the time requested? Next slide, please. So always demonstrate your strengths. So in the bio sketch, use that personal statement to articulate your career goals. And you can have up to 5 contributions for science at an earlier career stage. Publications are always helpful, but you could always also include abstracts as a contribution to science. There are sections of fellowships and career development awards where you can discuss your prior training and achievements, and particularly for a more advanced application, describe common themes in your career, or if you're taking a completely new direction, explain why. And then F's and K's require reference letters submitted at the submission deadline, and they should be from, respected and established individuals, but they should also know you very well. Next slide, please. So again, complete all application requirements. This is just a reminder that the BioSketch format recently changed. Make sure you have the right format. For F's and K's, you need to address training and responsible conduct of research. There are 5 specific elements that you need to describe. So make sure it's complete. Authentication of key biological and chemical reagents. Resource sharing plan is any novel research from a project, not just a new animal, and genomic data sharing if applicable. If you have a large RNA-seq data set, make sure you plan to share it. And then vertebrate animals, if you're having them, and then human subjects. Make sure you address human subjects and inclusion, but also if you believe that if you're using human specimens, but you don't believe that they fall under the auspices of human subjects research, explain why it's not human subjects. Peer review won't take your word for it. Next slide, please. And so just a few high-level writing tips. Be clear and concise. I'm sure you all know there's not a lot of space. Be as complete. Make sure your labels and figures and legends are readable. And also remember, your study section is going to have experts who are very familiar with the specific nuances of your field. And also scientists who are very knowledgeable, but may not necessarily be acquainted with your field. So make sure that people can understand you. My best advice is to give it to somebody outside of your research laboratory to read, because they might pick up things that you'll miss because you do it 1,000 times every day. Cite the published work of experts with the leading articles in the field, and of course, edit and proofread. It's easy to fix small mistakes, but if they pile up, it won't, leave the reviewers with the best impression. Next slide, please. And then just a little bit about research project grants. So an R01, and these are, as Manana indicated in the chat, there are other types of research project grants mechanisms, and some of them are very specialized for certain types of projects or certain types of career stages. So an R01 is a mature project with preliminary data. It's going to be up to 5 years of funding. It has broad eligibility. The budget should reflect the needs of the project, and you can renew an R01 to continue this avenue of investigation. An R03 is a small grants program. It's really a pilot project with 2 years of funding. The direct costs vary, typically $50,000 a year. NIDCR has a new investigator R03 that's a little bit higher, and it's not renewable. It's really just supposed to be like seed funding to get you started so that you can get that R01. Next slide, please. And then this is not a comprehensive list of other research project grant mechanisms. So the Research Enhancement Awards, there are two different types of R15 programs. They support meritorious research in places that don't have a lot of NIH funding. So there's an area award for institutions that are undergraduate focused institutions, don't have a graduate or professional school attached to it. And then there is another program for health professional schools and graduate schools. And the focus is on the research project, but a component of the application is how you're going to expose undergraduate students to research through working on your research project. And then the R21 Exploratory Developmental Research Grant Program is support for the earlier conceptual stages of the project. And unlike an R03 that's more like pilot funding, this is really a high risk, high reward type of funding. And that's what the emphasis will be on the innovation. Next slide, please. And a comprehensive site for information on all things grants is the NIH Office of Extramural Research. And it has, links to funding opportunities. It has links to application instructions. I believe there's a link to the reporter database, which I just mentioned. So when in doubt, go here. Next slide, please. And I apologize for my technical delays in my internet. I don't know what it did, but I hope that you heard the rest of the talk, and I'm very happy to take questions.
Maybe I will continue, and then at the end of the complete.
That sounds great.
Okay. Is this your last slide, Leslie? Can we move to the next slide, please? And the next slide. Okay, so I'm taking over now, it's my part. And before I go to the next slide, I would like to bring to your attention regarding the R01 research project program. There is a new program that was issued, I believe, early this year. It's CATS, Early Stage Investigators Research Project Grant. And we don't have a slide, but I posted in the chat room the link to this program where you can go and learn more about it. And briefly, this program supports an innovative project in an area of science that represents a change in the research directions for early stage investigators. So if you are an early stage investigator, which means that you are within 10 years of past your PhD, and you have some ideas and you want to move a little bit through to different direction outside the science that you've been doing before, so you can apply for this award. But so this award also does not it does prohibit to have preliminary data. So you should not have preliminary data. It's just exploratory, but at the same time, it's an R01 nor R21. So this is a new program, and so please go to this link website to learn more about it. Now, can we move to the next slide? NIBIB, in addition to parent R21 with certain requirements for NIBIB, we also have a new program that we called NIBIB Trailblazer R21 award. This is for new early stage investigators only. It can be high risk, high reward, or early stage technology development, minimal or no preliminary data. Remember, so a regular R21 for the NIBIB, it's for everyone, and preliminary data are not permitted. But here, it's only this Trailblazer for R21 is for minimal or no preliminary data, and it's only for early stage investigators. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to talk about the training and fellowship and institutional training grant career development because Leslie covered very well. I will just add that we, NIBIB, supports also team-based design research in biomedical engineering education R25. And also we have a program that is designed by biomedical undergraduate teams. Challenge. This is we call debut program. This is a competition for undergrad students who team up and they develop some cool technologies they submit, and it's a one-time award issued by NIBIB. So if you want to learn more about it, go to NIBIB training career webpage, which link is here. Next slide, please. So NIBIB also participates in diversity award programs. Especially there were some issued very recently. The goal of this program is to enhance workforce diversity within the academic biomedical research workforce. So one of them is using R25 activity code. It's enhanced science, technology, engineering, and math education diversity research education experience. So we participate in the Parent Diversity Fellowship of F31 and also K99 R00 in general, and particularly from to promote diversity in brain initiative under brain initiative umbrella for postdoctoral career. So we are part of the Mosaic. So as we are participating together with other ICs that is led by NIGMS. And again, you want to learn more, go to the webpage. Next slide, please. We have new programs coming out, the new RFAs. One has just recently issued and another is coming out. So it's a new investigators to promote workforce diversity in genomics, bioinformatics, and bioengineering and biomedical imaging. It's an RO for RO1. It has 3 receipt dates on starting February 22nd this year for the next 3 years. This is for new investigators who have not competed successfully for substantial or NIH independent funding. So PIs who had a career-related or mentored career awards are eligible for this program, including if you even had LRPs with loan repayment contracts, or it was part of any training programs. Also, some people who had the K99 R00 awards, they are also eligible for this. So this RFA's web has been issued, and you can learn more by going to this link. Next, please. So now we're switching to how to write a successful and competitive grant application. And Leslie touched already to this issue, but I'm going to add a little bit more. So components of successful application. What would be the successful application? First and most of all, strong and exciting idea. So you have to excite a reviewer when you're prepared. So you have to make sure that you catch their attention, and then they keep reading and they want to read and said, oh, this is so exciting. I can't wait until I finish it. So don't make them to fall asleep. It should be new science and new technology. So you have to assemble the right team, and you have to have right resources. Make a compelling presentation. Match your idea to the right place at NIH. There are 27 institutes and centers, and they have different areas of research, different disease, cover different organs. So find out where your ideas fit. Find out what review group study section would be appropriate for your application, for your project. It's different. Every study section and every panel is different. So I will show you later how to do it. High quality grant writing skills. Articulate the need to capture the opportunity. Communicate scientific content accurately and concisely, and follow all instructions, especially if you are responding to a special funding opportunity announcement that has specifics listed in the announcement. Make sure that you read every single sentence and respond to all requirements. And also, I tell all the time that go into review section. Every funding opportunity announcement has a review section. Go into review section and look at what your reviewers will be required to assess. And that is very key, so that if you answer all these questions in your application, you'll be successful. Next, please. So specific aims page, it's a very, very important page. It is your formula, your success starts with specific aim page. Tell your story in 5 compelling, concise, plain language paragraphs. Outline an important biomedical problem and your timely and innovative solution. Describe a big picture quantitatively. How can your science, your technology help? Then define the challenge for this application. What is your specific target and hypothesis? How will you get there? How do you know? State each of your 3 specific aims in bold face. So do not try to impress and get more specific aims. So the 3 is the kind of balanced number of specific aims. So, sometimes people have the 2, they're big ones, but they have 2, and that's okay, but don't overload. Identify strategies, methods, essays to be used, and data that expected. Overview the competencies of the team and resources. Why is this right group at the right place and time? You may have great idea, but you have to convince reviewers that you are capable of doing it, executing it. You have all resources in your institution to achieve the goals. Excuse me. And what happens when you succeed? Tell reviewers also what happens when you succeed. What are the next steps? How will the paradigm shift or treatment change? And what will this project contribute to? Will this be incremental or transformative? Next slide, please. What are the common problems? Let's say you receive back application and it was not successful. What may have been a problem? Low or no significance. Problem of a limited importance reduces significance. Unconvincing case limits impacts. Irrelevant, inconsistent, or insufficient reference to published work. You have to explain to reviewer, why do you think that your science or your technology, whatever you're developing, would make a significant impact? Will anybody care about it? Will it help to anyone or anything? Weak research team or a PI, insufficient experience, You have to show, as I said before, you have to show that you are capable of doing it and you have experience, you have background to do it. There might be lack of innovation, evolutionary and not revolutionary, incremental. It has to be something that it will excite, something new, something innovative. Don't try to, don't come with idea and don't come with approaches that have been already used and it will be the same. Questionable reasoning in experimental approach. Errors in design, number of problems to fatal flaw, proposed methods, not that the best way to go, a technology looking for a problem, failure to consider potential pitfalls and alternatives. So all these things, if they're not there, so you won't be successful. Very often, almost in every other grant application, you see that the reviewers ding that because they say the PI, you didn't say, if this doesn't work, what are you going to do? So don't say that I'm very sure this will work. So this does not help usually. You have a diffused and superficial or unfocused research plan. Lack of critical experimental details, unrealistically large amount of work proposed. So do not overload. It's better to get the fewer ideas, fewer aims, or fewer experiments to do, but you will explain and it will be executed well. No clear milestones, decision points, or criteria for success. Very important to have them. And another problem may be a poor environment, weakly documented institutional support, especially for the training programs, especially for something that at your early stage career. So it's very important. The institutional support environment is not about the institution where you are. It's not about if you are at Harvard or if you are at Stanford, that means that your environment is excellent. No, it is the environment about what are you going to do and what resources are available to you. Maybe Stanford has all resources, but it's not available to you. Convince reviewers that you have them. And serious unresolvable human or animal subject or biohazard concern. These parts are they are considered very seriously for when the reviewers determine scores. So please make sure that you address all the requirements, all the points that are usually very carefully described in the announcements. So all information, and if you cannot find it, you can go on the NIH website for researchers how to prepare your application and what parts of the application, what needs to be there. Next slide, please. Okay, so you were close. You received the results of the review and you were close, but could not make it to the finish line. So don't give up. Please try again. Revise and resubmit. Remember, it's not personal. It's about what you're proposing to do, and reviewers, when they give you the feedback, you can work on it. You can use their feedback. Absorb the critiques. Make suggested changes. Address all issues raised in review. If you have a list of concerns, if you have a list of weaknesses that from reviewers, please address all of them. Even if you think that reviewers didn't understand something and you have to explain. Do not ignore it. Nothing bothers reviewers as unaddressed concerns from the previous round. Provide justification for your approach. Explain your changes in one-page introduction. Remember, when you resubmit application, you have to a one page to explain how you revised your application. But it doesn't mean that you put all changes in the introduction. You can just explain or give an overview, but then within the application or within the research project section, you address the concerns. You can, if you are unsuccessful, you resubmit application, and it's called, we call this A1 resubmission, or you can choose not to resubmit and submit this application as a new application. Then you do not respond to criticism. You do not need to introduction. It's up to you. Next slide, please. So your application is reviewed, as I said earlier, mostly if it's investigators initiated, some fellowships, some career awards. It's reviewed by Center for Scientific Review. So Center for Scientific Review reviews close to 80% of the applications coming to NIH. Excuse me. And CSR has over 200 scientific review groups that are focused on science, dependent on sometimes on disease, sometimes on the area of research, and sometimes on the program, like is fellowships or career awards. So you can go to a CSR website and find which study section will fit your application. Your science, sorry. Can you, next slide, please. So how do you do this? You can go to the website, and there is this link. You click on the study section and enter a keyword or title, and it will list you. It will show you a study section that your science fits. Please, next slide. You can click on this study section names or abbreviation. It will take to the web page of the study section with the scientific review officer's name. It will show you the previous rosters, people who sit on the study section, if it's a standing committee or if it's a special emphasis panels like this one here, and also it says it has a kind of overview of the science it reviews in the study section. Next slide, please. And that's what I was talking about. This is the website web page that will take you to the study section web page. Please, next slide. Or you can also search by study section. You can click on this drop down here, and it will open the drop down box, and it will list all different study sections that you can go through and find more. Next slide, please. After you find out which study section it fits, you can use assisted referral tool and recommend study section directly. You can do yourself. If you have problems finding the right place, you are not sure, there are a few study sections, it may fit here or it may fit there. So don't worry, you don't need to do it necessarily. There are experts at CSR who are sitting at the front door, and they will put your application in an appropriate study section. Next slide, please. In your application package, when you're preparing your application, there is an assignment request form, and it's electronic. Of course, all applications are electronic. So this form replaces many functions of the cover letter. We used to have a cover letter that included all information. It makes, you can list an IC or study section request that I see your study section there, but it doesn't mean that it will be, you will be directed to the same. If some institute says that, no, I'm not taking this, then there is a negotiation going on between institute, which institute will take this application. Don't worry, your application will not be orphaned. You will have some somewhere to go. And also the study section assignment request. You can request, but it doesn't mean that it will go necessarily to this, because when we receive applications, we really go through and say, do we have experts on this or that study section to review your application? If not, we find a place where it will fit. Identify potential conflicts of interest. If you know somebody who you think that this person is in conflict and you don't want this person to review your application, please put your names there. This names there. And do not recommend reviewers. List area of expertise needed to evaluate the application, but no names, please. If you put any name saying, oh, this reviewer, this person would be the best expert to review my application, this person will not be invited at the for sure. Next slide, please. As I said, this previous form, assignment request form, it replaces cover letter, but it doesn't mean that you cannot submit a cover letter. Cover letter is optional. You can use it to explain why your application is late. If you are late, and remember, late applications are allowed for those who serve on the study section. You have 2 weeks deadline, 2 weeks delay for your own application. If your application, if your project, you want to submit a supplement in a video format, it means that video should not show anything new and any additional information to your figures or your presentation. So it's just a supplement. There is something, but maybe in a dynamic way, it will show better your figures. So you can provide, you can write in the cover letter. You have a video to submit, and you can contact the scientific review officer and talk to him or her, and he will or her instruct you how to do that. And identify your project as a generating large-scale genomic data. So if you are applying to any programs that are allowing over $500,000 per year, then you will have to have a pre-approval from the institute, and this pre-approval should be supplemented with cover letter. You should, as I said, you should not use a cover letter to make assignment requests. Use the assignment request form or suggest specific reviewers. Never do this. Next slide, please. You heard some from Leslie of the process. I will just maybe add a few points. So when you submit your application to NIH, first level of review goes through scientific review group. It's an independent outside review which evaluates scientific merit and significance and recommends length and level of funding. You as a PI receive a priority scores and a summary statement. Priority scores you receive very quickly, I would say within 2 or 3 working days. But summary statements, they take time for a scientific review officer to prepare. So be patient. In some places they require to release them within 10 days or 2 weeks or 30 days. So be patient. And after 3 or 7 months, your application will go to the second level of review, which is advisory council. Advisory council does not review all applications, doesn't read them, but they assess the quality of the SRG process. They offer recommendations to the institute staff. So institute staff, they propose applications or applications to be funded. But the final say is to advisory council to say, okay, we recommend this final recommendation. So in addition to that, what does advisory council do? They evaluate program priorities, relevance, and they advise on policy, director of the institute. And then after advisory council gives the funding recommendations for funding to the institute director, within 1 or 3 months, institute director makes final decision based on council recommendations and programmatic priorities, and also signs on and confirms and awards the projects or training. So and the next slide, please. So there are some very helpful tools or information that is on our website, on NIH website, or maybe even through YouTube. So you can see very informative video of what happens to your NIH grant application. There is a website for top 10 peer review Q&As for you as an applicant. Also there are videos on the scientific review websites. Next slide, please. For those who are in an early stage academic career or all independent, I would say, research career, not postdocs, not graduate students, those who are new PIs, serve on the Become a Reviewer. Check out the CSR Early Career Reviewer program, and also contact a scientific review officer if you find somebody on a CSR website or other ICs. They also have, as I said, review offices. Send them your CV or even program directors. Sometimes program directors receive this kind of volunteer express volunteer interest. That you want to participate in the review panel, so send to program director and they direct to us. So it helps a lot when you are part of the review panel. You see what it goes and what it takes to be successful, how to present your application. So as I said, you can contact the CSR volunteer. Email, excuse me, or contact, let's say for NIBIB, we have a special email that goes to, I check often if you want to participate in NIBIB panels, so we would be happy to take you. So the CSR web volunteer program is also and with more information you can learn from this website. And I believe this is all. My next slide. Yeah. So we got to the questions. So Leslie and me are here to answer questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Leslie and Manana. It looks like we have a question in the chat from Catherine Dunker. She asks, how can I find the program officer for the F31?
So yes, I had just put that in the chat box directly, but in the funding opportunity announcement, there is a section, administrative contacts. And so you click onto that section, and if it's a single institute program, you'll find them at the end of the funding opportunity announcement. If it's like a parent announcement that multiple institutes and centers participate in, There will be a table of IC program contacts. There will also be the peer review contacts and the grants management contacts. So also, when you do have an application assigned for review, you can look in your ERI Commons account, and you will likely be assigned, well, you'll be assigned a review officer. You'll also be assigned a program officer, likely, and a grants management specialist.
Yeah, you also, if you know which institute are your application fit, your science fit, so you can also find on the institute websites, they have all divisions listed, and you can find from there, so directly.
And if there are no more questions, I guess we can conclude this trainee session. Thank you so much to Leslie and Manana for their time and their slides. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending and participating.
Thank you. Good luck to everyone.
Thank you. Good luck.